Welcome to the BP Fallon Orchestra. Tonight, a double-decker from the pit. The second half of the show is from our orchestral archives from the file marked mid-60s, and that's the Rolling Stones talking about themselves during the earlier days and nights of their career, and the quality of the tapes isn't great, but so what? But first, the second half of the 80s with this unhangable team. Right, folks, there you heard Greenback Dollar, written by Hoyt Axton and performed by the men who couldn't hang, two of whom are sitting here in the orchestra pit. And maybe you'd be kind enough to introduce yourselves, folks.
Hello, I'm Shanne, play the bass.
I'm Paul, play bouzouki, guitar, and, anything else to hand.
All right, well, let's sort of go backwards, right, to the inevitable nips or the nipple erectors. Shanne, tell us about that group, which has kind of like in the passage of time, I suppose, gotten more famous than it ever was when it existed. I mean, tell us who was in it, first of all.
Well, basically, it was started in a bedsit by Shane and myself.
By Shane MacGowan?
Yeah, Shane MacGowan.
The Pogie Shane.
Infamous Shane.
Mm.
And there was about, probably 20 other members, about 12 drummers and so on. And it lasted for about 3 or 4 years, on and off.
Because I believe one of the drummers was John Moss, who subsequently culture clubbed out.
Yeah, that was the final incarnation.
What kind of a bloke was he then? Because, I mean, nowadays he's regarded as a very sort of together wheeler-dealer and businessman. And
is he?
Yeah, as well as
he's
being...
probably gone into market gardening by now, something like that.
He was a bit of a rich kid, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think his family's very rich.
Very nice person, though.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because another member was Jimmy Farnley, wasn't he, playing guitar, who's now plays with the Pogues on accordion.
Yeah, he's a good guitarist.
Well, tell us about this group. I mean, Shane has actually described the group, possibly humbly or possibly unkindly, as kind of a third-rate pop group. I mean, do you think that's true?
I think he always puts himself down, Shane. The lyrics are pretty good. But we were learning to play, so the music was more like the spirit of 76,
Not the punk thing?
Yeah.
But you weren't really a punk group, were you?
No, we went through phases, rockabilly and a bit of R&B, and a bit of pop, and the mod thing.
Did you get a lot of stick at the time for the name? Because, I mean, from being called the Nipple Erectors and changing it to the Nips.
Yeah, we couldn't get booked, so we had to change it to the Nips, which sounded a bit pathetic compared to the original name.
I mean, you couldn't get booked, what, even in sort of so-called punk venues, could you not?
Well, punk venues, yeah. But after a while, those disappeared, so it was back to your ordinary rock circuit.
Well, let's have a listen to the Nipple Erectors, folks. Your choice, actually, Shanne. What are we going to hear, Gabrielle or King of the Bop? Which?
King of the Bop.
That was the Nipple Erectors with King of the Bop, and sitting here in the orchestra pit is Shanne, the bass player of that said combo, who's now one of the men that they couldn't hang, and also here is Paul. Paul, let's go back to the roots of, or let's continue, I should say. Let's go on to the men the men that couldn't hang, the men they could not hang.
Couldn't hang.
Couldn't hang, yeah.
Yeah.
How did that sort of come together?
Sort of by accident, really. Swill, Cush and myself used to go busking in Hammersmith, down in the subways, you know, to earn a crust, really.
It's good sound down there, actually.
It's good sound, yeah. The one that goes
under the road to the tube station.
That's, you got it. Yeah, that's the best subway for busking in London, I think, really. It's got, the acoustics are great, you know. And that's where we learnt like half of the original set, really. Just going down there, earning, used to make about 11 quid a day. Enough to sort of go to the Majestic Cafe, which is just on the Broadway. It's sort of a famous cafe just next to the Clarendon. Go and have a bit of a meal, and enough for a drink, you know, maybe a drink in the Brook Green or something like that. Then go home, you know. And that's how it all sort of got together. And then, like, by accident, we got invited to do a gig at this place in Camden, and I was somewhere else at the time, I think. And Shanne sort of came along. She knew Cush, so it all just happened by accident, really. It just went from there, and as time's gone by, we sort of like gradually realised, God Almighty, you were in a band, you know.
And were you a rock and roll band at that point, Paul?
No, not. We were a busking band, really. You know, just we didn't have any equipment. We had terrible guitars and terrible amps, and we only, you know, I think I probably knew a few more chords than Swill and Cush, but we didn't know that many. You know, we just
describe who Swill and Cush are. These two folk that you've been mentioning.
Well, Swill is the short one with brown hair, who's always smiling, telling bad jokes. He sings sort of in a fairly poppy voice, you know, and he's got a nice melodic voice. And Cush is the gap-toothed one, who's quite raucous, you know.
So two singers.
Devil McCare. Yeah.
So there you are, kind of as a busking type band, right?
To start off with, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what was the lineup then?
Well, it's the same as it is now, really, but just a bit younger.
Though, was it?
No, we used to have two of the Pogues played. Andrew, the drummer, and James played accordion at our first few gigs. And now Swill's brother John plays drums, and we got Paul on guitar.
Well, were Andrew and who did you say, James?
Yeah.
Were they actually kind of members of this floating combo then at this point?
They were loaned, weren't they?
Yeah, it was started as a joke, really.
And were the Pogues going at this point then?
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as they saw that we were starting to get a bit serious, you know, Shane sort of put the blocks on it.
Well,
that was good, really, good for us, because it meant we had to start.
Get your finger out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's actually talk about this sort of thing I mean, I know the men, they couldn't hang are compared a lot to the Pogues, which I think is stupid, really, because you're nothing like them, you know. Why do you think that you've been, do you think you're like them?
No, well, I think we're completely opposite, really. I mean, I think it's just lazy journalism, partly, that's done it. Also, we did The Green Fields of France, our first single, you know, which a lot of people think is an Irish song, but actually it's not. It was written by a Scotsman who lives in Australia, Eric Bogle, who also wrote... What, Shane?
Haven't a clue. What?
Then the band played Waltz and Matilda.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And so you think just because you both very heavy intellectual vibe here, do you think because you both did songs by Eric Bogle that's where where the connection came? Yeah. To start off with, and then from then, although we've both diversified completely away from each other, people have only been looking back to that point and thinking, oh yeah, Pogues. And then we're like their little shadow in the background, you know, Pogues, oh, and the men they couldn't hang, which is really annoying, you know. Yeah, it must cheese you off, actually.
It does, incredibly, yeah.
Well, how do you do now, young Willie McBride? Do you mind if I sit down beside your graveside and rest for a while neath the warm summer sun? I've been walking all day and I'm nearly done. Well, I see by a gravestone you was only 19 when you joined the great fallen of 1916. Well, I hope you died well and I hope you died clean. Or Willie McBride, was it slow and obscene? Did they beat the drum slowly and play the five loudly? Did they sound the dead march as they lowered you down? Did the band sound the last post and chorus? Did they pipe the flowers of the forest? Did you leave a young wife or a sweetheart behind? In some faithful heart are your memories enshrined. For although you died back in 1960, in that faithful heart you're forever 19. Or are you a stranger without even a name? And closed forever behind a glass plate in an old photograph, torn, battered and stained, faded to yellow and brown leather parade. Did they beat the drum slowly and play the pipe lowly? Did they sound the dead march as they lowered you down? Did the band sound the last post and chorus? Did they pipe the flowers of the forest? As the sun beats down on the green fields of France, there's a soft summer breeze makes the red poppies dance. And see how the sun shines from under the clouds. There's no gas, there's no barbed wire, no guns firing now. Oh, but here in this graveyard God's land. The countless white crosses stand mute in the sand. And through man's blind indifference to his fellow man, to a whole generation who were butchered and damned, did they beat the drum slowly and play the pipe loudly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Did the band sound the last post and chorus? Did they pipe the flowers of the forest? Now Willie McRoy, I can't help wondering, to those that lie here, no, why did they die? And did they believe when they answered the call? Did they really believe that this war could end wars? Oh, the sorrow, the suffering, the glory, the pain, the killing and dying, 'twas all done in vain. For young Willie McBride, oh, it happened again. And again and again and again and again, did they beat the drum slowly and play the pipe loudly? Did they sound the death march as they lowered you down? Little band sound the last post and chorus. Did they pipe the flowers of the forest?
That single, the Eric Bogle song, The Green Fields of France, did incredibly well in the independent charts. I mean, it was the number one for Yonks, wasn't it?
Yeah, still does. Still doing
I think
quite
it's the anti-war theme behind it.
Do you think that people actually get into the words? Do you think they actually
Definitely,
know what
yeah.
it's about? They do?
Well, I hope so.
So, I mean, let's talk about the whole thing of it. I hate I'm mentioning them in the same breath nearly, but I mean, there are yourself and the Pogues and people like that who seem the total other end of the scale to, I don't know what, Duran Duran and King and Aha and that area of things. Is that an area that you actually patently dislike or
Yeah.
what?
patently hate.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you want to describe why or tell us why?
God, where can you start, really? Bands like King and Duran Duran, Culture Club, Spandau Ballet, you can go on. I just think
I wouldn't put Culture Club in that. Oh, well, maybe the last album because it was no good, but I mean, not normally. I think they're very good, actually.
Really. I think it's not just a question of music, it's also a question of presentation, the whole package, because that's how they look at it. They don't just look at it as music and songs, they look at it as, well, we've got the songs and the music, we've got the image as well, we've got to have that, and we've got to have the presentation. I just think that they're a cancer, they're a cancer that's killing off, good music, really, and there's a fight back at the moment that we're part of. But, to me, they're just a deadly enemy.
But do you not actually pull from the men that the men they couldn't hang? Do you not actually also, maybe in the back of your mind, if not at the front of your mind, think about how you look on stage and stuff?
No.
Not at all.
No, I don't think so. Well, maybe in the back of my mind I do, I suppose. But I don't think, I'm sure that Eddie Cochran did, but I've got great respect for him, people like that. I'm not quite talking about that, how you look on stage or whatever. I mean, if you're up on stage in front of so many
We've
people,
all definitely
you've got to be a bit
got our own
conscious.
image, but we haven't got a band image as a whole.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
what they
worked
don't
out.
do it that way, though, do they? What they do is go, look, here's the package. You got to buy it all. The look, the songs, the kind of influences, the interviews,
T-shirt of
whatever.
the album.
Yeah, it's that whole syndrome.
But I mean, if and when you get bigger, will that not be part and parcel of your thing in pop music, that you will have to think about how you market yourselves?
Definitely, yeah.
Paul's looking a bit
inevitable,
dubious.
really.
Well, I don't agree, really. I mean, obviously we want to go as far as we can, and I think we're going an awful lot further than we are now, as well, genuinely. But the whole of our appeal is wrapped up in the way we are, the fact that we are opposing that kind of thing. We are the deadly enemy of that kind of music, and that's the side that we're on. And if we cross over, we've lost our whole base, our whole reason for being, you know. So we can't
Yeah,
allow
but the thing
ourselves
is,
to be
once you've
sucked
signed
into
to a major company, they pick out certain points and then use them to market you, like they have
Only
with
if
the
you
Pogues.
only
Well, we
if you
tell
let
them
them.
we tell them to
make
get stuffed.
plastic shillelaghs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any plastic shillelaghs.
There is.
there is.
What, Pogues ones?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't got one of them. I'd love one of them. I've got a...
Maps of Ireland with Londonderry on
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got a Pogues mirror.
Stiff records, you know.
I want a plastic shillelagh, folks. Why not? What other groups would you relate to then? I mean, what kind of groups who do well in the charts do you like, or acts or anything? Is anyone at all?
No.
No,
Not
really.
one?
In the charts, no.
Well, Bubbling Under then.
Bubbling Under. Well, I mean, I've got unusual musical tastes in that I listen to Greek music mostly.
Do you?
Yeah.
Like what?
Especially Cretan music, which is quite similar to traditional Irish music in the rhythms behind it, and it's fiddle and an instrument like a bouzouki. Yeah, well, that's what I listen to anyway.
Wow. That's fairly left field, isn't it?
Mm.
Well, here's the men the men they couldn't hang, kind of. How long have you been going?
It's about 16 months now in our present, finalised lineup. Yeah.
And what's the big plan in the sky? I mean, how do you elevate yourself from being like a super successful cult band, if you
Yeah.
like, which, I mean, you're probably at the roof of that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
How do you kind of do the next bit?
We have to make sure our next album is brilliant.
And
And it's as simple as that.
how do you set about that? Is it down to songs or producers or what?
The songs, I think, aren't going to be a
Meditation.
problem because songs are there, and I think the songs that we'll have for the next album will be, on the whole, better than the ones on the last one. I think production is going to be an area we'll have to work on a bit, because I think the sound of this album, Night of a Thousand Candles, is a bit weak in parts.
Well, what's your favourite track on that?
My favourite track? I vary between Iron Masters and Scarlet Ribbons, actually, depending on what mood I'm in, But I'm proud of it. I'm pleased with it. But I just like certain tracks could have been stronger. I think we're going to go for a heavier sound on the bass and drums for a start off on the next one.
Yeah, a lot of Cretan rhythms.
We definitely want
Really?
to make it more,
Seriously, or is that
more
a wind-up?
danceable, whatever happens,
Well, I mean, talking about the sound of records and everything, right? In fact, will you just say more danceable, because I talked over that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll make it more danceable.
Talking about producers and stuff like that, we got the men they couldn't hang here in the orchestra pit. Nick Lowe is another chap, and we mentioned Philip Chevron earlier on. How did you get tied up with Nick? Because I think he's an extraordinarily talented man who never really has gotten the credence that he merits,
How do we get tied up with Nick? God knows.
Well, it was through Imp Records, really, who he's got a lot of connections with.
Oh, we met him at their Christmas party.
Yeah. And he was looking particularly dishevelled, because he looks dishevelled anyway, he comes in and he's got these bulging eyes, and he sort of gangles along. He's about 6'5", and he's a really big bloke. He looks
Great sense of humour.
Yeah, he looks incredibly youthful, despite, the fact that he looks so
But he's
weather-beaten.
62.
Yeah, like he's 70.
And how is he to work with in the studio?
I really enjoyed it.
And was it the old sort of record it and slap it down thing, or did he take more time?
Live, completely
It was
live.
completely live. In
Yeah.
fact, we even had time to do one of his songs, which is going to come out on his next album.
And
Really?
we played on, and he sang.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's called Wishing Well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's that about?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a love song.
Sort of love song, yeah,
Yeah, I don't really know.
He's
He
a
wrote
good,
it on
he's a
the-
good songwriter. We took a break at one point from, recording, and he just went down there on his own with a guitar, and he started singing this song that he'd written the night before, a beautiful ballad, beautiful song. I can't remember what it's called. And we were all just listening in the control room, and we said to the engineer, "Turn the tape on," because he doesn't know, and he was just singing it, and it went on for about 5 minutes, and we were just sat in silence listening. That was really good.
Another thing that you folk have shared with the Pogues is the piper, Tommy Keane.
That was Phil Chevron's
yeah.
idea.
Where did he get him from?
From a London band called the Peelers, who play traditional music.
He's always around playing sessions in pubs, around Holloway Road,
Yeah.
North London.
We wanted to get Finbar
Yes.
Fury.
Did you try?
I think Phil said he'd probably be too expensive.
So there was no sort of further communication, no?
No. We sent them a copy of Green Fields of France when they played in the same town that we were, but I don't know if they ever got it or not.
So you got no feedback?
No feedback. No, I'd like to get some. We'd like to get some feedback.
Well, Finbar, if you're listening, which I'm certain you are, please get in touch with us immediately, and any documentation will be passed on to the Men They Couldn't Hang. So, I mean, giving out, Paul, from the Men They Couldn't Hang about Duran Duran and their ilk, King and other revoltos.
Yeah.
Although I actually I don't mind Duran Duran compared to King, because I think King of the Pits are worse than the Thompson Twins. How can you actually dislodge those people from their cosmetic perches?
But I think the best way to do it would be to get a submachine gun and go along to their gigs and exterminate them. But I think, apart from you can't do that because it's against the law. But the best way is to gig constantly, the way we're doing.
Plastic surgeons, something like that.
Yeah, scar them.
Because you seem to really detest them nearly as strongly as well. Almost as... No, I detest them not as strongly as you.
We don't detest them personally on a personal basis. It's just what they are and what they've done to music, you know. But I think if we just continue to gig a lot, build up our following, which we're doing at the moment, we're doing it the subversive way, coming up from the bottom. You know, they never did that, really. They went straight in there. We're coming up from underneath where they are, and they don't even know we exist. And then one day they're going to turn around and find out where they are.
And can you see yourselves? Can you see yourselves on top of the pops and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely this year.
And you're gung ho for it.
Yeah.
Good.
God, yeah.
Good. I look forward to that. All right. Final track here in the Orchestra Pit with the Men They Couldn't Hang. Maybe be kind enough to choose a final track and tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, the final track's The Bells, which is an extra track on Greenback Dollar. It's the last song we wrote up till now, and the last song we recorded, and it came out really well. And it's just about England after the Second World War, when the Labour government came in, and there was a lot of optimism around, and what happened to the war babies. That's it.
Okay. Paul from the Men They Couldn't Hang, Shanne from the Men They Couldn't Hang. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
I was born to the sound of a ringing bell, a sound that had a tale to tell, a tale that told of a time to come, time and the ringing bell. As I grew strong, they built the land with the labour, the brain and the hand, the brain to plan, the hand to take the crystal from the sand. One winter morning I was wed, came a man in a hotel bed. The bells were ringing as we left the church, ringing in my head. Ring out the bells, ring out the bells, ring out the bells. Years went past, the boy was born, champagne bubbled and suits were worn. The older I get, the deeper in debt, dusk gets nearer